why do you write in your particular genre? And do you write anything that's not sci-fi?
I write both sci-fi and fantasy. Speculative fiction is my specialty. Although I did a murder mystery cozy once and a modern day romance once. I like science fiction specifically because it allows queer people a window through which to view themselves in the future. Sometimes, because we're a marginalized group, sometimes it's hard for us to see what our future might look like. It feels like we don't have a place there or in the world. And uh, the first way that we can start to see ourselves in the future is to write ourselves there and to read ourselves there. So that's why sci-fi is really important to me, especially in, I was on a panel the other night about this, especially in dystopian societies. It kind of shows us our place, that we still matter, we'll still be there. I like fantasy because it's a nice form of escapism. Uh, you can change the rules of society, and sometimes it's nice to see queer people have adventures that aren't just like coming out stories or homophobia. And I think fantasy offers a lovely backdrop for that when authors are brave enough to change societal norms in their worlds.
Excellent answer. Gunn, what do you think? You have to unmute yourself, honey. Oops. Yes.
Oops.
Yeah.
I write science fiction, and I also write contemporary romance. This latest book is a contemporary science fiction, so it's like mixing it up a bit. And I love writing sci-fi, much for the same reasons as Ray just said, but also because I'm a die-hard Trekker. I really am. And but I guess I write a lot of fan fiction as well. And I think you see the same. I write Star Trek Voyagers fan fiction, and I write Devil Wear Prada fan fiction. So it's contemporary romance and it's science fiction. So I do like world building, playing God.
That's the crux of it. You like playing God. We get that.
Yes.
I did not know The Devil Wears Prada was a fan fiction thing. That's interesting. Thank you.
It's huge.
It's huge. Gosh. Okay, I'm so out of touch. Anne, what about your genre? And do you write anything else?
Well, thus far, I've been concentrating on crime and mystery fiction. And I do enjoy writing that genre of fiction most of all, because it allows me to address things that I find important. Justice is one of them, or the lack of it, which often happens in crime and mystery fiction. One person's crime is the next person's survival. And it interests me to take a look at that dynamic. Plus, in crime and mystery fiction, you're dealing with issues of life and death, and what in the world could possibly be more important than that? And thirdly, in my Kendra Gold series in particular, though I have written contemporary crime stories in my short stories that I've published, but in the Kendra Gold series, it takes place in the 1950s, when, as I mentioned in the setup, it was illegal to lead a gay life, an LGBT life. And Cantor refuses to go along with that. She lives a very out life. And the reason that she is an art thief, say, as opposed to being a legitimate art dealer, is that at the time in the 50s, when it was illegal to live the life of a gay person, she figures, well, if you're going to treat me as a criminal, I'll be one. And so she becomes an art thief and smuggler on the dark side of the law. Well, this takes her into, she has to establish relationships in the underworld with other gangsters and thieves and so on. And unlike the upper world, the mainstream world where she would be spit on and hated as a gay person, she thrives in the underworld. They don't judge her. The only thing that matters in that world is survival. And for Cantor, survival is everything. I also find crime and mystery fiction to be, I know that this is going to just shock some of the romance writers, but I think of crime and mystery fiction as the ultimate romance, because whatever passions these people feel, like the scene that I read between Cantor and Alex, Alice, because there's so much danger involved, their relationships are heightened. So while it might not be the happily ever after kind of romance, whatever romantic feelings, or even if it's just plain lust between any given characters, they're so heightened because of the danger involved. So putting all that together, I just find writing crime and mystery fiction to be sexy and fun as hell. So there you go.
So it's addictive. I get that.
Mhm.
Thanks, Anne. Barbara,
I
why
write
do you write
fantasy.
the?
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
I write fantasy and science fiction, and the thing I love about fantasy is I get to make up whatever the hell I want. And I get to create whatever society I want. So if I want to have a society where it's like, everyone lives, gay people, and everyone's bi, I can do that, and no one bats an eye. And so that's why I'm drawn to it.
I would just like to say that all of my characters are bisexual unless stated to be a lesbian.
Everybody in the world, yeah, pretty much.
That's very cool.
They're either
That's very
bi or
cool.
gay. There's no in between.
I like that. By the way, Lucky 7 is on my to read list. Anyway, MB, you've gone from the sci-fi to romance and stuff. So, and sci-fi with
kind of flip
romance.
back and
So
forth. Everything has romance, whether it's sci-fi or not, as far as I'm concerned, because I like it that way, and I like happy endings. Doggone it. And I mean, I've always been a sci-fi fan. From Dune to Star Trek to Star Wars, my favorite. And so it just kind of comes naturally. It's harder for me to write real life stuff because real life kind of sucks most of the time anyway. But yeah, but for all the same reasons that everybody else spoke about too, it's just being able to make your own rules and make it work for the way I see it, or the way I want it to be. So like that.
well, given that authors have to get into the heads of all their characters, especially main characters, what was it like to get into the head of a were-coyote?
Wow. Well,
Because there's so much reference for that.
yeah. Even as a kid, like my one wish, if I had a wish, was to be able to mind hop. I grew up loving animals. I just had an affinity for them. And I just, I would have given anything just to be able to, know what it's like to be a frog, to think like a frog or a dog or even another person. And living with 6 dogs and 4 cats and a couple of turtles, and also being a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. I have a lot of mentors, not to mention a pack of coyotes who live on my property and have been very gracious and respectful in allowing me to record them 24/7 and even in person to observe them day and night. So, when it came to getting into the head of a werewolf, or in this case, a were-coyote, it's something I'd always wanted to do because I've written about, witches and fairies and ghosts and whatnot, but I wanted to do a shapeshifter. And of course, getting into the mind of someone who's, half human, half coyote, I had to have a character that kind of shares, both perspectives. And I have to say that, in shedding the wrappings of my humanity, there was a certain unadulterated pureness of thought, at least, in terms of driving that character. And it just was like shedding those wrappings like a dog shakes off the rain. And paradoxically, I came to the conclusion that there was kind of like an exaltation in the lessening, like going from a higher to a lower life form. And yet somehow, it felt like I was being lifted, to a higher threshold of thought and purity and all that.